Well, hey everybody, Wes McDonald here and Kenneth Edmonds, and we are officially on let me see how many fingers I got here, day 8, if you can see that, of the Flat Rate Challenge. Can you believe we're already here?
That is amazing. This week has the last 2 weeks have kind of flown by. They've been busy and exciting, but they've sure flown by.
Yes, and for those that are joining us that have been in all of the days of the Flat Rate Challenge, I don't know if you noticed our fancy new countdown timer, but we have our own live stream timer now, which is kind of fun. And one of the things I want to encourage people to do as we move through this is to have your own fun. We can't be having all of it. So make sure you post your questions, any comments that you have, those kind of things as we go through, right? Because this event is live on YouTube, Facebook. Actually, yesterday there was a problem, Ken. I don't know if you noticed that on Facebook. They're having trouble with their streaming. I saw an announcement actually on StreamYard this morning. Something's up with that. But anyways, most of the time it's live on Facebook, YouTube, and of course, LinkedIn. So if you're watching on any of those, and also if you're registered and watching through the Flat Rate World website, you'll see the comment box and make sure you add them. And one of the ways to get people warmed up for that, I always love sharing this, Ken, is to get people thinking about the fact that you are part of a global movement. It's official. Flat Rate, when we look at our registrations, one of the fun things is to figure out where everyone is from around the world. And you can see on the map here, it just astonishes me, Ken, every day that we get a new registration from some other part of the world, right? Some other country. And that this event truly is global. So if you're here today, go ahead.
I was going to say, and we had a great conversation with a gentleman in South Africa this morning. So
we did.
We're having impact globally.
Yeah, it's really neat, like Ken, obviously, as we were talking about kind of in the green room with Bob, who we'll be hearing from in a few minutes, that this thing, although we do most of our work in the U.S., that once we started this Flat Rate Challenge, that changed overnight, right? That we are officially, working with people from around the world now. And I will say more so than I've ever done, right? So it's really cool to see that happening. So if you are out there and you're watching, make sure you actually do share where are you from. That could be somewhere in the US. It could be somewhere in Canada. It could be somewhere everyone else in the world. But make sure you post your comment. Let us know where you are from. And Ken, this event is free at least for another couple of days, right? So I guess today we're already day 8, Wednesday. That means there are literally less than 3 days for people to register for this. And it is a free event right now, thanks to our sponsors. And I'm actually going to bring one of our sponsors up here in a second. And we couldn't do this for free without them. So make sure you thank them. And if you're watching this as a recorded event on either LinkedIn or YouTube or somewhere else, and you're not registered, if you're watching this before May 1st, make sure you do register so you can get it for free, because it will be a billable item come next week. So I'm just going to pop you out of the conversation. Oh, go ahead, Ken.
I was going to say, and if you get registered between now and first thing Friday, you have a shot at $250.
That's right. I forgot about that. 250 greenbacks to spend any way you want. So you've got to be there. You got to be registered. So make sure you are. So Ken, I'm going to put, go ahead.
Are we doing Australian dollars, US dollars, or Canadian dollars?
We never discussed that, right? So which part of the world has the best exchange? No, I'm kidding. It's definitely 150. Or sorry, now I'm changing the numbers. 250 US dollars. Absolutely. US bills. So if a Canadian's lucky enough to win it, that's a lot of money. I think the conversion rate's about 300% right now. So, hey, Ken, I'm going to put you in the green room, and I'm going to bring on Bob. Hey, Bob, how are you?
Good morning, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing fine.
Hey, first of all, I want to thank you for obviously sponsoring today's event. And it couldn't be free without people like you. And as I mentioned in every day of the challenge, we actually reached out to people that we thought would be a good fit for a first right of refusal. And we never had to go back and look for a second one. So I'm really loving what you guys are doing on the communication side for, voice and other things. And what I want to do is just give you a couple of minutes. I know some people in the office equipment world already work with you, but a lot of them probably don't. So maybe first you can just take a couple of minutes and kind of let the world know what you do.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. So I'm Bob Harris, the Chief Channel Officer with Pulsar 360. Just a heads up, we're a wholly owned subsidiary of SureWeb, based out of Canada. So actually, we sold the company to them 2 years ago, April, as a matter of fact. But we are a North American-based telecommunications company going on almost 20 years now in the business, and have had the good fortune in the last several years of getting aligned with the document handling companies out there with IBPI, BTA, you name it, and has been working out very, very well. As a result of that, we actually created a program for you to be able to sell our telecommunications services through your organizations. And we created a program called the Sales Referral Partner Program that we'll do a deeper dive on here shortly. But we have a full array of telecom offerings, everything from voice over IP to traditional premise-based phone systems, as well as SIP trunks and last mile connectivity. So if you have customers that need internet connectivity, then you can source those solutions through us as well. So we're pretty excited about what we've got to offer and what we can talk about today.
Yeah, that's great. Appreciate it. What I want to do now is, as you mentioned, let's talk a little bit more about specifically what you can do for, people that are doing flat rate. And, one of the things that I'm really bullish on, and we talked about this in the green room beforehand, is when people ask me, well, what if I don't want to offer any other services other than managed print? My answer is usually good luck, because the world is changing, and this ability to be able to use that flat rate seat that you're building to add these additional services like what you're doing at Pulsar 360, I think is absolutely the key benefit of moving into flat rate. So in our world, if all you're doing looking at the way, changing the way that you deliver print for customers, I'd say that's not very exciting. But by layering in services like yours, I think it gets real exciting. So maybe talk for a minute about that.
Yeah, and to your point, I coined a phrase probably 7 years ago, and the phrase is "Ye who owns the land wins." And what I meant by that was I saw the day coming, whether it was copier guys, whether it was IT guys, whether it was traditional telephone guys, you name it, IT desktop support guys, customers were going to be looking for one neck to grab, one source to be able to provide all those solutions. And if you don't have the ability to provide that, to your point, Wes, good luck, because you've just invited your competition to come in. So what we've done is we've created a program, because what we found when we launched this program, it's called the Sales Referral Partner Program. We launched this program through IBPI about 3 years ago, because what we found was out of their 500 plus members, there was probably only a handful that really understood what telephony was and wanted to get into that business. So we created this program that allows you as the partner who owns the customer, we do not own the customer, to basically give us a lead, give us a referral to your existing customer base. We will then proactively reach out to them on your behalf. We do all the due diligence. We do the demos. We do the proposals. We basically sell the product, and we do remote install, sometimes with your support, depending on the complexity of the application. And then we pay you 15% recurring for the life of that customer. What this program is intended to do is allow you to get into this business, maintain the relationship with your customer. The invoices that go to your customer will still have your name on them, but we take all tier 0 and tier 1 support. So again, allows you to get into this business without having to learn what the heck telephony is. But then if you want to transfer over to become a full-blown partner, which is, we have about 450 partners in North America, including Canada, that actually have truck rolls. They roll trucks, they have techs, they go out there, they do the support, they take tier 0, tier 1 support calls. But we are finding this other community of potential partners that don't want to do that and don't have the skill set to do it. So we've rolled out this program that allows you to get paid 15%. But then if you want to graduate into a full-blown partner 6 months down the road, a year down the road, 2 years down the road, whatever it is, we will then start paying you 25% on that particular customer to take on that tier 0, tier 1 support. So it's a very unique program. I don't know anybody else in the industry that's really doing that. So we're pretty darn excited about that.
Well, and I should imagine, that the people that are watching today are pretty excited about that too, right? So, it is. I'm just curious. I mean, there must be some increased opportunity as well, given kind of the state of the world that we're in right now, with a lot of people working remotely and people's communications needs changing as well, right?
That's correct. Matter of fact, we helped co-develop a product called Clearly IP mobile app. And that app, I'll actually bring it up here and show it to you here real quick. But it's one of the unique mobile apps out there that gives you connectivity to the platform and basically mirrors your desk phone, assuming you even have a desk phone. You know, millennials are driving this behavior where they want one device. That one device is going to be their computer, their telephone, their personal cell phone, whatever it might be. So we help co-develop.
You should be able to break that up now. I removed the other share.
I'm not sure if you can see it with my screen, but it's
hold it in there a little closer. There it is. That's live. That's the real deal.
Yeah, and it's got BLF capability. So if you see anybody on there that's green, that shows those are some of my employees. That shows that they're actually on a live call, and this is off my iPhone, and it also works on Android. So it's a very unique application that's getting a lot of traction because, quite frankly, you know, we're seeing the day of people buying physical phones to put on their desks. Those days are going away. Either going to be on a laptop or a Surface or an iPad or some kind of mobile device or smart device. And so we're seeing a lot of traction with that as well.
Yeah, it's incredible how quickly this has changed, right? Because I can remember in the past, even myself at home, like, you know, the idea of a home phone for me is gone. And that's not to say they don't have several, you know, ways to communicate, but that, you know, physical thing. And I was watching Stranger Things. You remember when they had the old phones on the wall with the long cords?
Yep.
So that the teenager, if they wanted to, could actually run down the hall and you know, have some privacy in their bedroom on the phone.
Yeah. I was one of those guys.
Yeah, I remember those days well, and it's incredible the change we've seen and the change that Pulsar 360 is leading. So certainly encourage everyone that is watching today to reach out to them. You can reach out to me directly through LinkedIn or through other avenues, and I'll put you in touch. Or you can reach out to Bob directly on your own. So, Bob, thanks once again for helping us out today.
Thank you very much.
All right, cheers. Well, it's pretty cool, man. I love seeing this revolution in the space for everything. It's not just managed print. It's this whole idea of the way that we communicate, the way that we share information with each other, right?
Oh, I think so. And it's interesting. Just sitting there listening to the two of you talk brought back a concept that when I first started my business, it was an article I wrote, and it was talking about flecks of gold. And it was talking about the concept that too many times people are always looking for one big sale.
Yeah.
And instead, what this gentleman said is that what you should be looking for is flecks of gold. And you start to do business with companies, and you're always looking for. And as you start to find these flecks of gold, pretty soon you have a gold vein that turns into a gold mine. And so with a multifaceted approach to customers and the ability to have different products, if somebody's got the printers and the copiers and you can't get in the door that way, can you get in on the managed technology side and do some other things while you wait for that other lease to come due? And it's all about once you get somebody doing business with you, they're your customer. And with with flat rate and MTAS or managed technologies as a service, you just get one sliver of a crack and you're in the door. And then pretty soon you're the only one in the door.
So let's talk about those flecks of gold for a second. And I don't know if you know, I did an e-guide actually for Tiger Paw Software, which basically really looked at these converged services and what the opportunities look like, right? So I'm just going to share my screen here for a second and I'll pull up some stuff. And let's see if I can hide this actually so we can see the whole thing. Where's my brand? All right. So this actually comes from a guide. Oh, let's get rid of the banner here. From a guide that I created. And it talks about the different market sizes for these opportunities, right? And what we're talking about, today with our sponsor, obviously in the communications sector, is growing at 21% per annum. So look at the size of that piece of that pie, right? So if you're looking to add something to your, portfolio, and we'll get into more of this on the last day of the program, but that is a huge sector of growth. The only thing that really outpaces that, and I don't think it's a surprise to anybody, is cloud computing, right? So those two chunks of the pie, if you can figure out how to get in there, are absolutely incredible, right? So It's not just that it's a different thing that you can add to your layer. It's something that clearly by those growth rates, people are looking for, right? So, all right, time to start moving into our 5 points of the day. And today, the first one that we're going to look at is how we review some of these business goals. So when we talk about doing our quarterly business reviews and upselling, that we've got to have some structure, and we've got to make sure that we're using these opportunities. And not all of it's about us. Some of it is about our customer. And I'll get to that. But Ken, one of the things that you and I have always talked about, you've got to do a whole bunch of good things for people before you expect anything in return, right? We had that conversation with our friend in South Africa this morning too, where we talked about that idea that, that we're giving to the world right now, right? This flat rate methodology and the ability to understand the tenets of what you need to move forward. And because it is that giving. So as we look into the business goals, just let me pull this up here for 1 second and get our brand back. There we go. All right, here we are. One of the first things that we want to do is review their goals, right? And everyone is in business. The only reason that they're using our services is because in some way it's helping them, to drive their own business forward, right? People aren't using us because they love to print. They're using us because they have to print. There's some reason that within that workflow that, that print's an important part of that. So one of the first things I always do when I'm doing a quarterly business review, I don't jump right into a review of how we're doing. No, I go the other way, which is asking the customer about what some of those new initiatives are, right? Because one thing I've learned over the years, like if somebody asks, me what I do for a living and they ask me what I'm working on that's new, I could talk about that for hours, right? It's that new stuff, those new initiatives that, people absolutely love to talk about because that's how they're growing. That's what they're using to grow, right? So by asking those questions, trying to figure out, showing them that we actually do care about their business, what kind of new things they're looking to do. And that's important for a few reasons. Some of it is just to get a better knowledge of our customers, what they're doing, who they are, what gets their nose an inch closer to the windshield every morning. But the second thing is it might uncover some opportunities, right? So, asking good questions, asking a lot of questions often leads to more opportunities. And Ken, we shared this on the program earlier in the week when I was working with an organization that actually sold document management only to discover that their customer had gone with somebody else. And they'd been delivering their copier and managed print services for years. And of course, they went to them and said, hey, wait a minute, why didn't you give us a crack at that, right? Like we've been doing document management now for years. And of course, the customer's response was not a very good one, which is, we didn't know you did that, right? So if they'd have asked those questions about those initiatives, guess what? They would have had that opportunity, but they didn't ask those questions. They lost that opportunity, right?
Yeah. And one of the things that I would encourage to add into this is in the way of a question, and I love this as a question, is ask them what their technology pain points are. Because the answer to that question will either do one of two things. It will tell you that you have something that solves their problem. It'll also open your eyes to potential of other things that might be opportunities for you to explore, whether you can make money in helping them with that. Again, the idea is that the more of their technology you help them with, the less likely they are to ever go away from you.
Yeah, it's true. And that's probably, kind of ties into point number 2, right? Which is asking that other question now about, is there anything that you're doing, any technology that you're going to be bringing in a house or whatever that could impact how you're printing, right? And clearly, we've talked about this as well. If people, education is a really good example. If they bring in a secure release printing solution so they can start offering quotas for students, how much they're printing, where they get locked off, et cetera, right? Well, if they install that platform, that's going to have a pretty big impact on those volumes, right? And so we need to know those things, and it's really healthy for us to know those things, because if we do have to adapt a contract based on a customer's needs. Now, the other reason I'm really glad, Bob was on this morning talking about what they do, is that the more of additional services that we manage to get to that customer, the less some decline in print is going to actually mean to us, right? And when I was running the numbers in the past for some other partners of mine, we figured out that the average, on a per user basis, the technology spend is about $160, and that is excluding kind of cybersecurity per user. Whereas on the managed print side, it was really only about $24, right? So a small, part of that overall, package. So the more of those things you get in there, the less impact those fewer pages going to have. But I'll tell you what, I'd want to help my customer with that if I knew they were doing things right. As we talked about in the contract section, that doesn't necessarily mean you give them a discount because the way that we've structured those contracts, the customer agrees that any sort of adjustments to the pricing and stuff are typically done on the anniversary of the 1 year of the contract, right? But it does make sure that we're ready. It does let the customer know that we're paying attention. It does let them know that we actually care about what they're doing, that we want to make sure that we're help make an impact, right?
Exactly.
Now, the third thing there, I just put other, right? Because I have no idea. I mean, one of the things I love to do before I visit with a customer is go online, go on LinkedIn, find some news, figure out some other things that are happening, maybe in their space that aren't particular to them, right? But, to bring up some ideas or some questions, et cetera, about their business that something in the world may be having an impact on, right? So one of the things that we talked about with Bob this morning was, hey, what about the impact of remote work? How is that impacting, voice and voice over IP and telephony and communication, right? And the answer is it's having a huge impact. And look at our app. You remember when he was holding up his phone and showing, how we could see where his people, which ones were actually using the technology and not, et cetera, right? So only by asking those questions do we really get that. So if it's a quarterly business review or a periodic business review, whatever you want to call it, that time with the customer, such an important thing to start with reviewing their business goals, right? Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
I was just going to say, yeah, and the better you understand your customer, and this process actually does a couple of things. Because first of all, we think about the fact that people buy from people they know, like, and trust, and we tend to know and like and trust people that listen to us and care about us. So as we're asking them questions about their business, and we demonstrate by our conversation and our attitude that we're trying to understand what they're doing and where they're going, it starts to really improve the rapport. It's interesting. I've heard this comment, and too many dealers are guilty of this, is that the only time they ever see their sales rep is when it's time to renew the lease.
Yeah. I always love that calendar item where they set it actually for anywhere from 9 months to a year before renewal to make sure that they don't forget.
Yeah. And keeping in touch and continuing to deepen that relationship is so important.
It is. So let's start with them, make sure that we are concerned about them and what they're doing. The second part of what I'd recommend in that review with the customer is now to actually look at, what we're doing with them, right? So they come first, we come, second. And let me just bring that up bigger here. So now we can start to look at, some of their document related needs, right? Oh, actually, just let me pan out of that for 1 second. There we go. To review these flat rate items that we're doing. So we've talked about this already, but this idea that although we're not billing for volumes, they're still important in the contract, right? So if we do have some language in that contract related to benchmark volumes and what could happen at the contract anniversary, should those volumes be out of control, et cetera, it really is our job. And I think if we do what we did in the first part, which is looking at anything that might impact print, it's not always going to be things that are going to decrease print, right? Some of the things that they're doing might actually increase their volumes. And it's really good to understand those things ahead of time. If they are seeing a dramatic increase in volumes, it's probably a really good idea to have a conversation about them with that, right? Because remember, the title of what we're doing today on the Flat Rate Challenge is Upselling PBRs. So in that PBR, if there's an opportunity because they've increased print needs, that we can actually move that contract to a higher seat price early, right? Based on the fact that something has changed. If something hasn't changed, if there's something that is going on that they're not aware of, maybe a certain department head brought in a piece of outsourced print that they were doing before, right? Something that was being outsourced and they weren't aware of it. They didn't realize that they were making a mistake. Then we can get ahead of that and make sure that we say, hey, well, look, that's actually in our fair play clauses. That's one of the things that we talk about is this, that you're not supposed to bring in those additional volumes for things that you were paying for separately before, but hey, that's okay. We can actually increase the flat rate pricing for you to get ahead of this, right? Um, and it also gives them the opportunity to have a look at it and say, well, wait a minute. Our volumes are high now, but what if we get back in line, before the end of the year? It's like, well, that's great. No 13th invoice in that situation. As long as we get this, back to where the contract agreement is, then, everybody's good, right? So important to look at those, at those volumes. The other part of this is when we're reviewing that again is talking about those changing needs. That's the conversation that it leads us to, right? So if they do have changing needs, I'd certainly want to know about that and bring that back to my office to be able to speak with my business unit manager about, to let them know that there are some changing needs and to get ahead of it, to take care of it before this actually becomes something that, heaven forbid, they would go to market for, right? So let's make sure that we're controlling that in our QBRs, that any opportunities, et cetera. And as the last bullet here says, any issues that may be coming up as well, right? Because let's face it, I wish we could, have any offering, if it was cost per page or flat rate or anything, where there weren't issues. One of the big ones, Ken, this as well as I do, is the grievances people have with meter reads right now, right? So we install some software, if we're doing it correctly, to be able to gather those meter reads under a cost per page program. But if something happens with the firmware or there's some other issue, sometimes those things don't get captured. Or sometimes they have a number of devices in the office which simply don't report them, right? So we've actually got to manually get them to submit those. Maybe somebody makes a mistake. And if the only time we ever learn about those things is when the customer is actually contesting a bill that we've sent them, that's probably really bad. We could use these quarterly reviews to get information about that, where they might let us know saying, hey, look, we love everything in the program, but under this flat rate program, we thought that we could actually have a lot more impact with the secure release. But people are complaining because, we've only got the 2 devices and it's getting backed up. So maybe that's an opportunity. Maybe saying, okay, well, hold on a minute. Like, could we actually look at your changing needs and give you some additional devices to spread that out? Like, do we want some other devices where they can authenticate? Would that help? And sometimes the answer is going to be, yeah, that would help, just so we're not bottlenecking at those 2 multifunctions, right? Those kind of conversations to have when you're doing them in a quarterly business review are generally pretty friendly, right? Because it's not to the point where they're filing an official complaint. So let's get ahead of that. Let's use that when we're talking about our flat rate program. Don't be afraid to ask those hard questions, right? And Ken, you and I talked about this. Hard questions are good. If the only time that we're actually learning about some of the hard things that are going on in a contract is come renewal, well, we stand far less of a chance of winning that renewal than we did if we were ahead of it, right?
Yeah, I am such a fan of it. And in the service management class I teach, that is one of the things I talk to my service managers about. I said, the nice fluff questions you ask to get a really good net promoter score are fine, but they don't help. What you need to do, and if you do it separately, that doesn't matter. The point is that you've got to find where your customers, where you could get better. And I would say this throughout the dealership, you should be constantly asking your customers how you could be better, because they will tell you what you need to fix if you'll just listen to them.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't think necessarily that people are afraid of asking the hard questions. It's just that the way that we sell things, it's just not built in to ask those questions, right? Because if you're paid gross profit on selling a copier, those hard questions mean nothing to you, right? Because you've done your job, you got paid, you got to move on. But under this flat rate agreement where they're paying a flat fixed monthly rate, it's really important, because your job as the flat rate specialist, your job as the organization, is to make sure that that contract is as profitable as possible. And so you got to ask those questions, because remember, if the customer starts printing more, that's not good for us anymore, right? That's cost, based on that flat rate price. So we don't want to do that. I think I'll move into number 3 now. And, one of the other things that we want to do is start asking questions about things that have nothing to do with print. And remember, we said this at the beginning of today, is that print is just a thing that people need to be able to facilitate their workflows, right? To be able to help them do what they do for a living. So print's not a standalone item. There are other things that they do, and these are also opportunities for us, which we'll get into discussing more when we visit this on the last day of the challenge. But I do want to touch on a little bit today, right? So what other things are happening? Are there new workflows in that organization, right? Bob mentioned that, he sold his company to SureWeb, a couple of years ago, right? And I can guarantee you that when that happened, that changed some of the needs at SureWeb, that there were different business requirements because of this new acquisition, right? So, have you gone through any acquisitions, or are there things you're doing as an organization that are going to change these workflows? Or are there ways that we can adjust and help you to flex with that, right? And there could be. There also may be some new digital workflows that are thrown into that, right? I can remember years ago. Ken, you remember when you used to? I'm going to age myself now, and only the Canadians are going to get this reference. But Canadian consumers distributing. Does anyone remember consumers distributing? So it was basically a mail order catalog, and I'm sure all the big, like Sears and other places had the same thing. But you go in and you would order, whatever you had. So you had a little pencil, you filled out the form, you saw a nice picture of it, and then you submitted it, and then it would take a long time. You'd get a phone call notifying you that it was 3 weeks away, et cetera, right? And I can remember that first day when I actually signed for something digitally. Do you remember that, Ken, like for yourself? When someone came to the door and they had that little electronic tablet thing and they said, sign here. And I was like, what? Like, wow, right? So you've got this different workflow that requires this new thing. And I'm telling you, that's an opportunity, because guess what? If I was in the, in the cell phone business or some other thing, I would be trying to find a way to create an opportunity there to get them off that proprietary device and onto something that's not proprietary, right? So by understanding these workflows, we can find out if there are new opportunities in that account for us. The second thing is obviously version controls, and Ken, for the Flat Rate Challenge, like we share all of our documents in the cloud, right? Like we have one living document, and whenever you make a change or I make a change, that's reflected, right? So right. Do they have some needs for version control? Because there are ways to help them with that. Again, just using that document management, example that I listed before, get ahead of that. If they're starting to look at it, and I guarantee you, if they're an organization that isn't doing this today, they're going to be, right? Like, in the old days, you had to use something external like either Dropbox or Google Drive. Well, guess who owns that market now? Office 365. Hello, Microsoft, right? So they were slow to the game, but guess what? They took it over. So are there needs there that you can help them with, right? And cloud storage. So there are a lot of options out there for dealers to be able to help customers, with their own options. And as I showed in that pie chart earlier, you remember, Ken, between communications like VoIP and, telephony and stuff and cloud storage, those are the two biggest growth areas right now in those converged services, right? So you got to start thinking about ways that you can actually either support those or add those to your stack. And it's kind of interesting. I did an actual webinar and a podcast interview with a guy, Jay McBain. He's phenomenal. Like the stuff that he does at Forrester Research. And he's talking about this whole idea of the channel changing into an ecosystem, right? So even if there's not a direct link, one of the stats that just blew me away was that even, let's say, if somebody buys Microsoft storage, or if they buy, if it's Azure, or if it's through Amazon or whoever, we as dealers may think that we've lost that opportunity, when in fact, for every dollar that somebody spends with one of those providers, guess how many dollars are generated for the channel?
I have no idea.
$5 for every dollar. So by being able to support that, by finding some way in which we can actually support that there's huge opportunities, right? So I'm digressing a bit. I know that moves into kind of the last day territory, but I just want everyone to think about that when you're asking those questions and looking at those document related needs, even if we're not supporting those today, that allows you to come back and understand and figure out how you might become a part of that, right? And certainly one of the things that would come out of today is, well, I'd certainly want to be looking at how they're communicating. So, should I be talking to Pulsar 360 about how they can help with those remote workers and help us with those workflows? Absolutely, I would be doing that, right? So really important. All right, number 4. Let me just come out of here for a second. Hopefully what we're doing as organizations under this flat rate program is actually adding additional services. And I would think that if I signed a flat rate agreement for 4 years with a customer, that I'm going to have new things to be able to talk to them about. If not in the first year, then definitely in the second year. And that's the other thing that we can use these QBRs for, right? So remember, Ken, we started this off very customer centric. What are you doing? Like what's new with you? Where are you going? What kind of things are, keeping you up at night? The second thing we then went through is how we're doing. So is everything that we're doing okay? The third thing was, are there additional needs? The other things that have nothing to do with print but are document related, which are moving that direction. And number 4 would be, now it's time to start talking about some of the new things that we're actually doing. Okay. And that's okay, because at this point, there's nothing that stops us from being able to show them how we can help them further, right? So you can see right here, one of the office equipment dealers for sure, in the course of time, is going to be offering Pulsar 360 services. And I'd want to talk about that. I would want to be able to use that opportunity to present it to the customer. They may say, we've already got a solution, or we're not interested, or anything else. But guess what else they might say? Your timing couldn't be better, Ken. Like, we were just talking about that last week. Well, that's amazing, right? So it's not a hard sales pitch, but it's making them aware of what some of those additional things are. Digital signatures and other ways for them, to be able to use their workflows digitally, right? Again, if we're doing something like document management or other approval processes, which might take paper out of the stream altogether, then let's share that with them. Let's talk about it, right? And the third thing I don't think we ever talk about enough is where we're going. So you remember we started the conversation, Ken, at the beginning with the customer asking about their business and the direction they're heading and everything else. Well, anybody that's watching this today that's learning about QBRs and upselling through those QBRs, the reason that they're involved with this 10-day flat rate challenge is because they're looking to evolve and adapt their businesses, right? And that means it's going to become part of their roadmap. They may not offer flat rate services tomorrow. They may not offer VoIP or telephony tomorrow, but they're going to start adding these things to their roadmap. And customers want to know about that, because when we share a roadmap with them, they may also come up with some ideas about saying, that's great, I love the direction that you're going there. Or have you considered this? We have another partner that's actually similar to what you're doing, but they're going down this road for one of these points. And maybe it's an opportunity to help us refine that, right? So, be proud of that. Every organization I've worked with has some kind of roadmap, and it's letting our customers know where we're going, right?
Okay, so I wanted, because it's really interesting, because Wes and I don't rehearse these, if you hadn't figured that out.
Shocker.
But it was interesting because you had that digital signature there. And you know what my first thought was when I saw that? Digital signage.
Oh, for sure.
Because that's an easy add to their workflow. And we think about in the pandemic, actually, a couple of the manufacturers have like remote robots that act as like a virtual receptionist. There are just so many ways that you can start to service your client if you just get out of the box. And
those can be on your roadmap, right? Like I said, even if you're not offering those things today, guess what? The digital signage or coffee and water services or VoIP and telephony, right? That, it's a good idea to let customers know before you're actually ready to sell it to them, the direction that you're heading.
Yeah, I think so too. And like you said, they may give you some suggestions, as you mentioned. And like I said, it's just get out of the box. We get so wrapped up in thinking that we are copier dealers. And I would tell all of you that are listening, and I wish I could get everybody in our industry to listen, because people that think they are copier dealers today are in grave risk of being like typewriter dealers of old.
Yeah. No, for sure. And, the next part I'm going to move into, Ken, is bullet number 5. And before I put it up there, I'm going to throw that out. See if anyone will comment, and maybe what do you think would be the final thing you might do in one of those QBRs? And Ken, before you answer that, we'll see if anyone will, kind of answer that, right? So if I've gone through all of this, and actually I would say, let's say that it's the QBR that we're doing at the yearly review, right? They've had our services for a year. They love everything we're doing. We understand their business so much better because we've been asking the right questions during those QBRs. We've actually sold them some additional services. So now they've got some Pulsar 360 offerings in their, in their stack. They've changed some devices because of, internal complaints about some of the things that were going on, right? So at the end of the year, they're super thrilled with everything that we're doing. What might that last thing be that I do, during that particular QBR?
No,
Dum
I can
dum
tell you.
dum 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 da dum 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 dum. Referrals.
Very good.
I'm telling you, one of the things, and this is what I love, right? Um, is that when we've done a good service for customers, when we've actually delivered far beyond what their expectations were, when we've changed kind of the way that they acquire their services and experience those services, um, when we've done our job correctly, that it's a good time to ask for referrals. And Ken, what gets me so excited about this sort of approach at the end of the QBR. And again, I'm not saying you do this at the end of the first 3 months. I'm not saying you do it 6 months, but certainly on that QBR you're doing for the annual review and that contract. If we've changed that much for how they're doing, if they've actually experienced not having to count meters anymore, right? If they've experienced having predictable billing, if they've experienced us coming in and really taking care of them as customers, why on earth wouldn't they want to refer us, right? So use this opportunity, because you got to remember, in the cost per page world right now, I think because of this race to the bottom, and I think because it's so competitive, that it is harder to get that referral business. But I'm telling you what, this opportunity comes around probably once every 5 to 10 years, right? Where something is so new and so different and offers such benefit for the customers that they will go out of their way to recommend us, right? So Ken, you mentioned it earlier. Can you imagine if the customer was using a typewriter, right? They were used to using typewriters, and you were the one that came in and introduced them to one of the first word processors, right? The first computerized word processors. And you got them off that. Do you think they might want to tell their friends about that after a while? I think they probably would, right? You know, but if you had one typewriter that was just a little bit different than another typewriter, do you think that they're going to be as apt to refer you? Probably not. So take advantage of what these kind of paradigm shifts in an industry can do for you, which is to give you an opportunity. Because remember, we've talked about this too, Ken. Not everyone's doing this, and not everyone's going to do it, and I don't care. In other words, I would rather be a dealer right now. I would be one of the few, one of the brave, one of those people that we showed on the world map, which are going this direction. Because as Bob mentioned earlier as well, right? He who owns the land wins. It's this idea of there's this land grab going on right now, and that's going to make you look so different in the eyes of your customer. So use this as an opportunity for those referrals.
Yep. And so I want to share two things. And I forget where I read this, but I love this, the way you asked this question. So when you ask for a referral, your wording should be very similar to this. Who do you know that can benefit from services like this?
Yeah.
Because if you say, who do you know, it demands a name. Whereas if you say, do you know somebody, that's a yes or no. But who do you know? And then the second thing I would ask is, I would say, would you mind just hopping on a short Zoom call with me and let me record your opinion of how this has helped you? And then that would be on my website.
It sure would. I'd find as many ways to use that as possible. But, like you said, there's that two-part question. It's one, who do you know that this could benefit, right? But the second piece is that it would benefit. It's not like, hey, I got a quota to meet. Can you put me in touch with some of your friends, right? Like, we like each other, right? Can you put me in touch with your friends? No, it's directly, because, when there's a benefit for the person that they're referring you to, when they can help them, that makes people feel really good. Because like, hey,
Yeah.
They're going to get this and they're going to love it as much as I do. And they won't even believe that they were doing it the old way. They'll say cost per page. How was I doing that for 20 years? Right. And voice over IP, why didn't I start that sooner? Why do I still have this PBX in the basement? Right. Like that, these kinds of things really can make a huge difference in how a customer goes forward in their business. So take advantage of it. Don't forget to ask for those referrals. Right.
Absolutely.
What I'm going to do now, Ken, shocker, is to let everyone know, if you are watching this currently, either as a recording or you just found it on LinkedIn, because people do. I can't believe the number of people that just find our videos on LinkedIn or YouTube and start watching it. Well, you can register. And we talked about it at the beginning, but we're going to talk about it again. Make sure you get there, register for the 10-day challenge. Why on earth would you pay for this incredible learning experience when you don't have to, all right? And again, we're going from a zero cost, thanks to our sponsors like, Bob and Pulsar 360 today, to something you're going to have to pay for afterwards. So make sure if you can, get it for free. The other thing I would encourage you to do is have a call with us. And as Ken mentioned, we had a call with a partner this morning. We've got another one booked actually for this afternoon and a few more during the week. We're taking time to be able to talk to you about your fly rate journey, and it's going to be different for everybody. So there may be a way for us to help you. Maybe this 10-day challenge is all the help you need. But no matter what the answer is, that Ken and I would love to be able to talk to you. We booked some time for that. So in the chat, there is a link. I think that's in there, right, Ken? Is that right?
No, I just put it in the private.
All right, let me copy that and put it in there. I'm going to put this in here right now for everybody. So if you're not sick of listening to our voices, you can actually talk to us more. Imagine that. There it is. So I've posted that in there. And we certainly appreciate everyone taking this journey together with us, and the learning that hopefully we're providing has been useful for you. And what I want to do is, we've got a minute, and I actually see that it looks like Bob's still here. And so I'm just going to bring Bob in to thank him once again and to say thank you. So, hey, Bob.
Gentlemen.
Can't thank you enough for supporting on this mission today. And for everybody out there that is enjoying this for free, you can look at that person right there with the Pulsar 360 hat, and you can thank him directly. And the best way you can thank him is to find out more about what he does and how he can help your business. So, Bob, thanks once again for helping us out today.
Yeah, well done. Nice presentation.
Great.
Thanks again. Everybody have a great day.
Yeah, all the best. Yeah, really neat. I'm moved every day when I think of the generosity of people to be able to help out with this program to make sure that people can, that they can get it for free. So tomorrow, oh my goodness, is that really day 9? Are we already there? Is that Thursday? Is that day 9? Man, well, I'll tell you, one of the things that's really important is the back office considerations, the people that you have to work with on the contract administration side, on the billing side, how you run that business if you're moving to a flat rate versus traditional cost per page. So tomorrow we're going to talk about that. And we've got a sponsor, Tiger Paw Software. I showed an image from one of their e-guides that I helped them with earlier, and really looking forward to that. So remember, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, Thursday. What is that? The 29th. And until then, continue to be awesome. All right, Ken, we will talk to you tomorrow.
We'll see everybody tomorrow.
Cheers.